Let's take a look at a very useful uh, data type, the string class data type in Python. Okay, and we're going to look at regular strings first. So I have an example here. We're going to declare and set up a string in this method, and we'll assign it a value, in this case Carly. We're going to concatenate two other string literals to it. We talked about concatenation in the previous video. So Carly, Solely, Germany. And we're going to create a multi-line string. And remember, you can do that with triple double quotes. All right, so 3 double quotes, all your text in between, and then close it with 3 double quotes. So triple double. Triple double, triple double. So this is our multi-line string. We're going to say, beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand. Ever play D&D and use a vorpal sword? Long time the manxome foe he sought, so rested he by the tum-tum tree and stood a while in thought. Okay, so that's just our multi-line string. And we're just going to display them. The single string here, the concatenated string, and the multi-line string. Let's give ourselves a bit of screen real estate. And let me make sure I'm running the right function down here. I should have all the others commented out. Okay, good. Strings 1 is what we want to run this method. Let me pull this down just enough to see the code. Okay, there. And clear the screen, hit F5. Okay, so here, A, our single string, B, our concatenated string, Carly, Solely, Germany, 3 strings concatenated together as 1, and then our multi-line string. Remember, that's a double quote, double quote, double quote, all your lines of text, and then close it with a double quote, double quote, double quote. Triple double, triple double. Okay, so there's our Jabberwock quote right there. Let's take a look at our next example. So I'm going to run down here and comment out our strings 1 function, and let's run our strings 2 function now. Okay, so strings 2 function. A string is really an array of type character. Yes, it's a class of object in Python, but you could think of it as an iterable, an array, a string of ASCII characters or Unicode characters sequenced one by one, element by element, one after the other. And to show you that, we're going to use an iterable, a list method or an array method, the len function, which will give you the length, the number of elements inside a string or an array. And we'll show you how that works. And we can also use it in a for loop. And we're going to go over these in much more detail in following videos. The len function to get the length number of elements in an array when we talk about lists and dictionaries and tuples and iterables, arrays. And we're going to go over for and x and range when we talk about repetition structures and looping. So again, if you're new to programming and Python's your very first programming language, take your confusion and just put it on the shelf for a little while, because we're going to come back and cover these topics in much more detail in the following videos. And if you're not new to programming, if you've learned other programming languages and you're learning Python, then you kind of understand what's going on here. But either way, just to show you that a string works as a list or an array type object, an iterable, and that you can treat every character in the string as an element in the array. We're going to use this example here. So let's clear the screen, and we're going to say a string is really an array of type character, an iterable object. Just like with an array type object, you can use the length, and we're going to get the number of characters in the string because each character is an element in an array, and then we'll display the string. And if I run it, hit F5. All right. So what am I doing here? Print will add a carriage return or line feed each time on my for loop. And so I'm going to go through, and X is each single character, C-A-R-L-Y. It's going to iterate through that loop and display them, and print will take care of adding the carriage return and line feed all the way down. So it just displays all 5 characters of my name. And just like with that, we can use it to get the number of elements. Notice there are 5. How many characters? 5. Why? Because the length function always returns the number of elements inside of an iterable, a list, an array type object in Python. Let's go run the next one here. Method 3. And in function 3, strings are accessible as substrings. Because they are an iterable, an array type object, every character is like an element, then you can grab any portion. You don't have to take the whole string. You can take just a portion of the string. And to look at that, okay, so we have a variable called Pokemon song, and we've defined it with the value, I want to be the very best like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause, okay? And then we're going to say, look, we have a decision structure here, which we'll go over later, decision structures. But for now, if you have a bit of confusion, put it on the shelf. We'll go into this deeper in following videos. But if Pikachu, not in Pokemon song, all right, so if the string of characters, the word, the string, Pikachu, the substring, is not in the whole string, part of the song, Pokemon song, or the value stored in our variable, we're going to display Pikachu is not here. If cause is a substring that happens to be in this string, then we're going to display I found my cause. And it is. Cause is at the very end. What's that, a period there? Just so, all right. So if we run this, let's clear the screen, hit F5. So Pikachu is not here. Why? Because the substring Pikachu is not in that string value. It's nowhere. That sequence of characters, that substring is nowhere in that string. All right. So it returns false, and then Pikachu, if it's not in Pokemon, so Pikachu is not here. Is cause? Yes, cause is at the very end. That string of 5 characters, C-A-U-S-E, that substring value's in it. And so because of that, it says, I found my cause. Hence, what is displayed down here. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the next example. And I'm going to comment that and then uncomment 4. And we'll take a look at example 4. Using upper and lower methods. These are just 2 functions, 2 methods in Python that are very convenient to use with strings. You have the upper method, which will convert all the characters in a string to uppercase, and you have the lower method, which will convert all the characters to lowercase. That can be very useful. For instance, when you're taking input from a user, you might be asking them a question, and you don't really care what the case value is. You don't care if they type it in all caps, if they're flaming. You don't care if they type it all lowercase. You don't care if they use a combination of uppercase and lowercase. You just want a certain value to compare and take as input in your program. And so for this reason, upper and lower can be very useful methods. So let's take a look at how they work. And we have one string that's all lowercase. And in the streets the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed. A line from Don McLean's American Pie, one of my favorite songs. Uppercase, but not a word was spoken. The church bells all were broken. Okay? So we're just going to display those 2 strings. But then we're going to take lowercase and convert it all to uppercase. And we're going to take uppercase and convert it all to lowercase using the methods upper and lower. Okay? So if we do that, let's run this and see what happens. We're going to hit F5 again. All right, so look, the string lowercase by itself, and in the streets the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed. It's all lowercase. And the uppercase string, but not a word was spoken. The church bells all were broken. It's all uppercase. But now look what happens here in section B. When I called upper, it converted all the lowercase to uppercase. Yeah. And then on the second one, when I called lower, it converted all the uppercase to lowercase. Did I say that? I think I inverted that. When I called upper, all right, it was lowercase. It converted all the lowercase to uppercase. And then when I called lower, it converted everything that was uppercase to lowercase. So it's all lowercase. So you can kind of see how that works. Sorry, I didn't mean to invert that, or did I invert that? I don't even know. I'll find out when I edit this video. Let's go look at the next example. Strings 5. Now, another useful method is the Python replace method, and it lets you find a substring inside of a string. And once you find the target, you can replace it with the value of your choice. Very, very useful in programming. So we have erroneous Gettysburg is a variable. It says foursquare and 3 years ago. And we have correct Gettysburg is erroneous Gettysburg. Call the replace method, and we're going to find the substring 3 and replace it with the value 7. So instead of foursquare and 3 years ago, it'll be foursquare and 7 years ago. That's the correct Gettysburg. So it'll display incorrect Gettysburg address. It's just a variable unchanged, and then correct Gettysburg, which is that variable. And we've used the replace method to replace 3 with 7. Okay, so let's clear this down here and we'll run it again. I'm going to hit F5. So again, incorrect Gettysburg address, foursquare and 3 years ago. Correct Gettysburg address, foursquare and 7 years ago. Okay, so you just see how the replace method works in Python. I'm going to clear this down here. Let's go look at the split method. So we'll run our next string method. So upper, lower, replace, split lets me split a substring off of a string. All these are very useful methods with, string class objects in Python. So we have main character string. And we have our 6 main characters from MLP, Friendship is Magic, Twilight Sparkle, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Applejack, and Pinkie Pie. And this is all one string, including the commas that separate the names, okay? But I can use the split method here, main character array, and then on my main character string, I can call split. And when I do that, if I pass this in as the parameter, that's the delimiter, all right? That's the target that split uses to split off a substring from the whole string. And what it's going to do is it'll do that. Every time it finds a comma, it'll create a substring of that string. So Twilight Sparkle will be a separate string, Fluttershy a separate string, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, and so on, okay? And it will store them in an array of strings. So instead of one string with a bunch of names, with commas, I'm going to have 6 strings, substrings of that original string, and the delimiter, the target that it used for the separator was the comma, okay? And then once I have that array, a list, it's an iterable, right? So stored in a list, I can then use a for loop and cycle through every string, and that's all we're doing here. And we're about to go over that. In upcoming videos, we're going to go over repetition structures and for loops and range and all that sort of thing, while true loops. But for now, just know that this is a way to cycle through a list, an iterable, an array type object in Python, one element at a time. So it's just showing you what the split method did. It split that entire string here, that one big string, into 6 small strings, and it will display them one by one in our repetition structure and our for loop here. And then we'll just show you using the split method. Here we're going to use it with range, okay? And we'll look at how that works. And let me see, did I uncomment 6? Yeah, okay, I already did that. All right, so let's see how that works. I'm gonna give us a little bit more screen real estate here. Here, okay. And I'm gonna hit F5. Okay, so using split loop method 1, notice again, here's one single string, and then it using the comma as a delimiter, as the character that separates one substring from another, it split that one single string into 6 smaller substrings. and I just numbered it all the way down using a counter variable here. All right, Twilight, Sparkle, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Applejack, Pinkie Pie. Now, a way to do that without a counter variable is using the range method and then length. And if I do that, I have to add 1 here because there's a fence post issue, an off by 1 error, when you index items in an array using a repetition structure in a for loop. Goodness gracious, I guess we're jumping ahead here. Don't worry about that. We're going to cover that soon in upcoming videos. But I'm just showing you a different way to do it. And even though I'm doing it a different way, it still numbers them sequentially, 1 through 6. And notice that they're all, split has successfully taken that large string and split it into 6 substrings. Okay? And let's take a look at another example here. And here we have an array. This is a list type object, an iterable, an array in Python. And we have several values. The string literal 12, and then, typed out 7 in characters. String literal 19, 13, 9, 18, 6, and so forth. These are all string values, okay? Our list is all string values. But here's a problem. When you use like the input method, which we've covered in previous videos to get input from the user, it all comes into you as a string. But what if you're asking for a numerical value? We're going to create several calculators in this course. And to do that, we have to manipulate numbers, integers, and floats. Well, you can't do mathematical operations with a string and get the results that you expect. You have to convert that string to either an integer or to a float. And you can do that, if it's the character 9, the ASCII character for 9, the ASCII character for 5, sure, you can convert that. You can cast it, typecast it. But what if you ask for a string and they type in, oats, goats eat oats and oats eat oats and little lambs eat ivy or something? What if they type in some nonsensical, non-numerical, non-digit type value? How can you deal with that? How can you bulletproof the code, to handle the user craziness, the random user craziness, all the things that they're going to do to try to crash your program or give you unacceptable values, unacceptable data? Well, you have to mask the data. You have to validate the input and make sure that what they give you is the type of data that you're expecting, something you can actually use to do some math with after you convert it from a string to an integer or a float. So isDigit is a very useful method or function with strings. You can use that with the input method to make sure when the user gives you input that it's actually numerical, alphanumeric, but numerical input. And so that's what we're going to do here. We have some various values stored here in pony ages. And we're going to say if x is digit, we're just going to cycle through each element in the array for x and pony ages. It's an iterable, it's a list type object, an array. We're going to go through it element by element. And if it is numerical, if it's a digit, something that we can convert, we'll say is a number. And if it's not, we'll say it's not a number, okay? So let me clear the console down here. I'm going to hit F5. And notice 12 is a number. 7 is not a number, okay? Alpha, but not numeric. 19 is a number. 13 is not a number. Alpha, but not numeric. 9 is a number. 18 is a number. 6 is not a number. So again, this is very useful with the input function or input method to make sure that the data you are getting from the end user is actual numerical data and not some gobbledygook nonsense that you don't want in your application. Here's some of the string class methods that are available to you in Python that you can use. And we'll go over more of these later. We've just gone over a few of them now, but capitalize, case fold, center, count, encode, ends with, expand tabs, find, format tab, index, is ALNUM, is alpha, is ASCII, is decimal, is digit, is identifier, is lower, is numeric. You've just got join, joining two strings, R-index, RGIS, repartition, rstrip, split, strip. Some of these we've gone over, but there's a lot of these that we'll go over later. Just be aware that there are many, many, many functions, many methods built into the string class object in Python that you can use in your code and in your projects. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe and click the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.